What up, big dogs? I'm your host, Coach Craig, and this is Athletes Unleashed. On today's episode, my guest is a rising star on her way to play Division I volleyball for Long Beach State University. We discuss her experiences at U.S. national team camps, the transition to becoming a one-sport athlete, the community she's built through her years playing sports, and the importance of being seen as more than just a volleyball player. Please enjoy my conversation with Madi Maxwell. Completely oblivious to the volleyball.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I talk to so many people, but volleyball is just something I've known people who play, but also maybe not at your level. So the ins and outs of how it works. So you're going to Long Beach, you committed to Long Beach.
Yes.
You play there for 4 years. And it's indoor and you're going to play beach, right?
Mm-hmm.
Part of the reason why I would imagine you wanted to go to Long Beach.
Yes.
So while you're at school and you're playing there, do you also get to do stuff with the national group? Or is it just specifically college for those years?
There is a collegiate national team for USA. So it's a lot of the girls, but you have to get invited. So I think certain schools get picked by the coaches at USA, but a lot of the coaches at USA are college coaches. So my coach, Tyler, he's big in the USA program and he's big in the beach and the indoor program. He's very well known around the nation. And so I think it's like the U21 team, the national collegiate team. They pick girls from each school in certain positions. I have a girl from Legacy that I know that plays at Cal Poly Pomona. She got invited to go to it's like a tryout kind of thing when you get into college, and then they pick people from there. So
Cool.
It's very specific. It's not as much a training together and learning. It's I think it's mainly a tryout.
And then when actual national team stuff happens, so whether it be Olympics or World Championships, are they pulling players from college, or is it everybody who's done with school?
I think they might be playing players from college, but a lot of the tournaments and things that they go to isn't during the college season.
Right,
It's after, so it'd be from December. So they'll probably get pulled from their off season to go travel and do that, and then they'll come back and play.
So you said you've gotten in. You went to 2 different national training camps.
Yes.
That's an invite?
Yeah, it's an invite. So a lot of coaches will scout at tournaments just like college coaches do, but they're USA coaches. Some of them can be scouting for their college and then be like, hey, maybe this girl should invite to USA. Maybe she's not looking. I'm not looking for her for college, but she could be a good addition to our training. So a lot of the girls that get invited are already committed to places. There's barely any girls that aren't committed to places already. So they'll do a lot of scouting at tournaments, and then they'll send you an email and say, hey, you're invited. So mine started, she's not the assistant there, she's the assistant at Texas now, but she was the assistant at Long Beach when she was recruiting me. She was one of the USA coaches, and she was like, hey, I think this girl will be a good addition to your program. So she got me kind of into the program, and so that's how it started running.
Yeah. So the first one you said was where?
Maryland.
And when was that?
That was in May, I believe.
So
it was
your
this
senior year of high school, or was it
No,
May?
junior.
It was junior year.
It was junior, yeah.
So what's that experience like?
It was great. I mean, it was hard because the Maryland one during school, it was only 3 days of training. It wasn't the week long. So I stayed with my mom, and the first day, we all traveled in and checked in, and we had one practice, which was 2.5 hours, and then we all, we didn't get meals or anything, so we did that with our parents. And then on the Saturday, so Friday was the first practice, Saturday was the long day. There was 2 practices, I believe, that were both 3 hours long. So that one's kind of you go early in the morning, you practice, they give you specific skills, so you're with your group. So I got invited as an oppo, and so you go with your specific group and you work on that, and then you get your break, you have lunch you go out with your friends, you meet a bunch of people. I knew 2 or 3 people going into the camp because I met them at college camps, but other than that, I made a crap ton of friends. And then the second one is kind of more play based, so you add all the positions together, and then the last day we do a tournament style where you get random teams and you just play each other.
That's cool.
It was so fun.
So you said oppo. Not everybody knows.
Opposite. So opposite is a hitter in right front. I'm a setter oppo. My main position is probably setter, I would say now, but I do obviously play opposite, and they were impressed with that.
Is that what you're planning to play in college?
No, I'm playing both in college. My coach mainly recruited me as a setter, but opposite if they really need it. But they say both.
Do you have a preference of what you like to do?
See, I used to love hitting, and I do love hitting, but I kind of like setter because it's kind of the quarterback of the game. So you kind of get to take control, and it's very much a leadership role. So I am kind of grown into a leadership role. Being the younger, it's harder on teams, but like my coaches have had me like, hey, I need you to step into this role. So I think being a setter and getting to touch the ball every play is kind of cool. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, from what I've seen of all, I mean, you have the kills record, so you must like the high school kills record. So you must like hitting a little bit. But from what I've seen, it is, as the setter, you really do get to dictate everything. So that's got to be.
You don't get as much praise, but I like it better just because you get to lead the team. If someone needs you, you kind of like let them hop on your back, and you're like, yeah.
And I'm sure as a someone who's played both positions, you can appreciate because
they'll appreciate setters.
you can't really you need somebody to set you up for the kill. So that's cool. So okay, you're gonna get to play both.
Yeah.
Okay, so you said you went to one in May. When was the next one?
That was July.
Okay, so during the summer.
Yes.
And that was where?
That was in Florida, Fort Lauderdale.
And you said that was a longer.
Yes, that was a week long. Well, I was there for a week, but it was 5 days. So same training schedule. First day we all arrived and got there. But this one was different. Obviously a lot more expensive, but we stayed in a hotel with the players. So this time my dad went with me. And we got assigned players. So like my roommates were random. Never met them before. They're both awesome people. But so we get there the first day, we check in. We have one practice like that night. And then the next morning it's 2-a-days for 3 days.
Wow.
Which can get very exhausting, especially when you're fighting injuries. But I had those roommates, and then like I met people at the last camp, so we hung out like every night. So we would literally have breakfast at 7 a.m. We would go and train from like 9 to 11, I believe it was. And we walked to the convention center, and if you know Florida heat is terrible, and let me tell you, the walks were worse than the practices. Yeah. So walking there and back, we walked like a total of like 16 miles over 5 days.
Wow.
Yeah. So we would come back for lunch, and then we were all so tired, so we'd go back to our hotel rooms and nap for like an hour, and then we'd have the next practice. Then we'd all come back and eat dinner, and then it'd be like little bonding times. Like there was like an area at the bottom, like everyone would play card games, or we'd all like hang out and make TikToks and whatever. But like just bonding, and like I still talk to a bunch of them because some of them are younger and haven't been committed yet. So like I get to talk to them about their recruiting process, and like I text them all the time. I'm like, hey, like how are you guys doing? Like so.
I imagine that's cool. a very nice thing for them because I feel like the recruiting process can be
stressful. It's
stressful, difficult. It's kind of confusing at times. So it sounds like you had a good time. You met a lot of people.
I did.
Was there a lot of like nerves and anxiety going there, or once you're there? Like what's your mentality like when you're there?
There's definitely nerves because you're with the top players in the country. So it's like it's no longer like, hey, like you're taking the top player from like each high school, whatever you want to say, and putting them all together. So you're no longer like the greatest person there. Like they're going to be people that are better than you. So it's very challenging, which I love because I love to be challenged. But at the same time, there's definitely a lot of nerves. Like there's girls that are bigger than me, and I'm a big player as an oppo, but like there's girls that are bigger and they're more experienced. They've played longer, but like at the same time, you like bicker and it's very competitive. I love the competitive environment. And then I also got the chance at the Florida one to set. So I was setting and hitting at that one. My assistant coach was there. She was one of the coaches, so she got to ask and be like, hey, like, can she set? So I got to do both. But like it's a very competitive environment. We all challenge each other. You make mistakes. You're great at times. You have a bad practice. You have a good practice. So it's like there's no just being great. Like you're being challenged every single time that you're like touching the ball.
Yeah. Sounds intense.
It's fun though. I love competitive environments. So it was just like being in that environment was just like my dream. I was just like, I love this. Like this is what I want.
So maybe some nerves on the way there, but once you're there, you're like,
once you're there, and you know people too. It's not like, oh my gosh, like who's gonna be my warm up partner? Like because you start to get to know people.
Right.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
I know.
So I imagine a similar environment moving into college. Yes. You're expecting.
Yeah.
I mean.
That's the hope.
Yeah, I'm sure. And Long Beach is a great program and a great school.
Yeah. I'm excited.
Not bad to go to school by the beach.
No.
So I know we've talked about it a little bit before. You weren't always, or maybe, I don't know, I actually don't know how long you've been a volleyball player, because I would imagine at some point you grew a little bit taller and it looked like things were going that way, but you were a soccer player before that. So Was there a time where you were doing both? You don't play soccer anymore. And I know people that you played soccer with. You were a good soccer player. So, I mean, obviously you're a good athlete.
Thank you.
But was there a moment or how was the transition process? Because at some point I'm sure you were playing both. But when your prospects look like volleyball is going to be the thing that is going to be most successful for you moving forward, I'm sure there is a decision that has to be made where I'm going to dedicate myself to volleyball. And I think one of the things that non-athletes or people who don't compete at such a high level might find difficult is you do have to choose between things that you might love to do and things where you see like this is a definite future for me. So how did that transition happen? How was playing at the same time? And then when do you decide volleyball is what you have to do?
So I started playing volleyball when I was 10, which I think was 6th or 7th grade, and that's when I was doing both. I literally would have volley from 4 to 6, and then I would go straight to Central Park and play soccer from 6 to 8. So being that young, I think it took a little bit of a toll, obviously on my physical, because I'm only in 6th, 7th grade, but also mentally because it was like going from a 2-hour practice to another 2-hour practice with girls that are all older than me and only have one practice. It was very challenging. It was very motivational too, though, because it was like I still want to be the greatest at what I do. I loved it personally. I got to go play both of my favorite things in the world for 4 hours in a day. And so I did that 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And then 9th grade was the year, or like right before 9th for high school, my parents were like, okay, like it's kind of time you need to start deciding, because at that time I was only playing club volleyball and club soccer because there was no high school involved.
Right.
I got lucky, so I was going to make a decision. I got lucky, COVID happened. So I got to play an extra year of soccer because high school we weren't in season. So like I had a high school season, but it was during the spring. It was intramural, which was also during clubs. So I did miss a few club games, which was kind of hard. But at the same time, it was like getting to play both. It was just like I was happy because I was like, okay, I get one more year and then I'll make a decision. I'm very thankful because my parents didn't pressure me at all. They were like, we're going to let you decide what you want to do. We obviously know what we want for you, which was volleyball, because they're a volleyball family. But they were like, we're going to let you decide if you want to play soccer, you can play soccer, you're going to be great at it. If you want to play volleyball, you can play volleyball. So getting into that last few games of soccer, I kind of decided, I was like, okay, I think I want to play volleyball because I think that will be a greater path for me from what I've been told. At that time, even going into 10th grade, I loved soccer more by far. Like soccer was my thing. Like I was in love with soccer. I loved volleyball too, but it was just like my heart was with soccer even though I was better at volleyball, which was kind of at a crossroad. That's what made it hard for me to decide. So those last few games, obviously rough with girls who have been on the podcast. I got to play with them. That last game was really sad for me. It was on Mother's Day, and I still like remember it to the day. Like it was really sad, and it was kind of a moving point for me because it was like, okay, now I get to put all my attention into one sport and be the greatest at that sport. So it was like 10th grade was when I played club, I played high school for volleyball, so it was like no more soccer, like I was done. I was still training for fun, like going out with my brother because I was like, obviously I miss it. I would go to practices and hang out with the girls. But other than that, that's what I chose. Obviously my parents are happy. But then I've grown to love volleyball more now, obviously. But that transition was hard at first. Like I missed soccer for like a year and a half, where it's just like, okay, like I still want to play soccer, even though I'm playing volleyball right now.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's the end of one thing, but the beginning of a kind of a new journey. But that's one thing when you leave a sport, whether it be voluntarily or otherwise, is all of the things that go with it. You don't really think about, it's like, oh, it's my last game, it's tough. But then you're like, well, then I don't go to practice. I don't see my friends as much. You really miss that time where you were talking about people at the national camp where you're hanging out and spending time together. It's like, well, when you play on a club soccer team or any sort of club sport, you're spending exorbitant amounts of time with people. And it's not just playing games. You're going to tournaments, you're hanging out. It's a really like a family environment, and you build relationships with these people, and they become almost more than friends. It's been kind of a recurring theme with a lot of athletes that I work with, is your team becomes your family and becomes your closest friends, and you look forward to the time spending with them. So it's difficult to not only have to step away from a sport that you love, but also know that your relationships with people might change. I mean, maybe not. You'll always be friends with people, but it's different when you see them 2, 3, 4 times a week. And then when your focus moves to something else, it's like, of course, you have your volleyball team, you're another family. But it's kind of bittersweet. It's the ending of one thing that you love to do, but it also gives you the opportunity to really throw yourself into something that, like you said, you grew to love even more, and is actually a propellant for your future, for potential career moving forward. So I've been where you are, where it's kind of like, this is it, and I don't want to admit to those feelings. And did everybody know it was your last game?
Yeah, everybody knew. I mean, we ended on a win, which was pretty good.
That's
good. Yeah, everybody knew, but I was very thankful because Brett being my last coach and like that whole team, they were like the greatest support system. They all came out for like 2 of my games for high school that one time, and that was like very special to me because I was like, hey, like I still have these relationships.
Yeah.
I don't have it on right now, but I wear his Fearfully and Wonderfully Made because it broke, so I need to ask him for a new one. But like I still text Brett. We talk about like me going to Long Beach and like talking about me going early, and he asked me how's club going, how's USA. So it's like, it's very important to me to keep those relationships because like they understand the other side of my sport, where it's like, yes, I love volleyball and I have relationships that like love me in volleyball and like understand it, but I also have other relationships with athletes that like don't understand it. So it's kind of fun to be able to explain to them like how it is for me and how it is for them, like how it's like changed over the years.
Yeah.
But I'm very thankful for those relationships. I still stay in contact with a lot of them. I get to see them in college and play. So.
Yeah. Well, and I know, I don't know if it's just a soccer volleyball team. There's a lot of, at least at the high school, there's a lot of friends on both teams. There's a lot of support going both ways. I know people come watch your games and vice versa. So that's cool. I'm glad it carries over and you can kind of maintain those going forward. And it's one of the things, growing up through sports, personally, I learned a lot about life and just different lessons that transcended the specific sport. It worked for any sport that I played. So I'm sure there are things that you learned as a soccer player that can help your game as a volleyball player, and maybe not just necessarily physical things, where it might be, things that you were doing as a soccer player might make you more agile or stronger in some ways, cardiovascular, whatever it might be, but just the mental and emotional aspects of it as well. There might be things you don't even think about that kind of carry over. I know that sometimes the sports do cross over a little bit when you're playing. You were saying that sometimes soccer shows up in volleyball and vice versa when you were younger for soccer. Do you still see that, like, in volleyball practice, the soccer player comes out once in a while?
Yeah, when I was 13, my coach were like playing defense, and there's a ball, and I'm not a person to dive because I'm so tall that I just go into the floor. It hurts so bad, so I just kick it and just like play it up, and it'd be perfectly fine. And she would like yell at me. She'd be like, "No, like you need to dive, like volleyball, whatever." I still do it to this day. I practiced 2 days ago, and like I literally just went out and kicked it. And I was like, it's just like a natural thing for me to do. I don't even think about it. I'm not like, oh, I'm gonna go kick this ball. Like I've done it in high school. Everyone's like, oh my God. I'm like, that's just normal for me. So.
Yeah, it's a cool aspect to your game. It's a cool attribute that not everybody has. So that's it's interesting. It's nice to see that things still carry over. So one thing you mentioned right there, you've decided to go to college early. You're graduating from high school early, a semester early. I'm interested in how you came to that decision. Like, I can understand as an athlete why you want to and the advantages that it might give you, but I've never asked you personally as to how you came to the decision. And also, I want to know, like, obviously there's excitement going to school early and doing something that you're really excited about doing, but also you're missing out on the last half of your high school experience. So I want to know, like, how you came to the decision and then how you feel about it, really. Like,
so it was a really hard decision. When my coach first presented it to me, I was like, I don't even want to think about this right now because I was so excited for senior year, and a lot of my friends are older, so that made it a little bit easier to make the decision because they're already in college. I still have a very close 5 in high school that I play volleyball with that are still going to be here, but my parents really wanted me to go early because they're like all the advantages and like
Sure.
being a setter. My coach explained to me like going early, you're gonna have to learn. You're gonna get to learn the system early. You're gonna get to do all this early and start classes early if you really wanted to. And so like instead of coming in June and then you have 2 months right before season to learn everything and try and play as a freshman.
Yeah.
Because obviously that's the goal. But what made it easier for me is the advantages. Like I really just want to be so good at what I do that I was just like, this is gonna get me there because he wants me to go early, and he wants me to get there, and he wants me to learn it, and he wants me to be so good too. And then, but the hardest part was definitely like thinking about what I'm gonna miss on. Like I'm gonna miss a lot of things in the spring semester that would, like I'm gonna miss what would have been my brother's season. I won't get to see him play. I'm gonna miss all my friends' soccer games and seeing all that and like prom and all that. But my coach has also been very lenient, so he's like, anything you want to go back for, you can, as long as it doesn't interfere. So like, I'm hoping to go to prom. That's the hope, and then I will come back to walk with everyone. So hopefully they don't forget me by then. But
I'm sure they won't. So that's not okay. That's good. Like, I definitely could see that there's. I'm sure it's pulling you both ways, but hearing you say that, it does make a lot of sense. If you're trying to break into the starting lineup, not only do you get to learn the system, you also get to build chemistry with all the players.
Yeah.
So it makes a ton of sense to want to go early. And I think for a lot of people, especially when you're going to college, the transition period to when you get there to when classes start, and then for you, when your season starts, you'd be coming into school. Not only you have to get comfortable with going to class, living on your own, setting up your own schedule, managing your time and homework and all those things. It gives you an advantage of getting comfortable before the full college experience begins. So that makes sense. And it's nice that you're going to be able to hopefully come back for a couple things. It's always... I would struggle with the decision as well because it's your senior year. Like I think it means a lot to a lot of people, but you're thinking about your future and your career, and it makes sense to me. Like when I heard it at first, I was like, wow, that's a big commitment to like walk away from something that I think a lot of people look forward to. But for me, with you, it makes sense because you're driven. Like you have a plan and you want to get. You know where you want to get to. So it makes perfect sense to me. And I'm sure it took a while to come to, but I think you made the right decision.
Yeah, my parents want me to go so bad, and I think that's going to be the hardest part is leaving my family because, like, anytime I talk to my mom, she gets very emotional. And I try to keep it in. I'm like, not yet. Like, I can't cry yet.
Yeah.
Because I do, obviously, like, I help a lot with our family and whatever, but, like, my brother, he's going to be a single only child for longer than he thought he was. So it was like, not having me in the house is going to be really hard, I think, because first of all, like, kind of run the house a little bit, do like all the little fun stuff, like do laundry for everybody. So like that's going to be big for them. But I think it's just going to be a big missing piece because we all spend a lot of time together as a family. We'll go out and do dinners and we all go to each other's games. We're very supportive of each other. So like not being there is going to be really hard. And then also like my first semester, or my second, but like my first season in the fall, my parents won't be able to come to my games because my brother's going to be playing, which I completely understand. It's just going to be hard for me to not go his games either.
Yeah.
Because it's his senior year. I'm like his number one supporter. He knows that by a mile. So like not getting to go to that and like go to his senior night is also another really hard factor for my parents. Just like not having me there is like hey, like our daughter's still here.
Yeah. So it sounds like it's going to be a bigger transition for them than it is for you.
Yeah.
So I know it is tough. I think it's always tough when a kid goes away to school. But you never really think about everything factoring in, like your brother Parker's football player, basketball player. And, it is exciting to get to watch your siblings play their sport. And I'm sure vice versa for him. He wants to come see you play too. Yeah. But I think you have a long career ahead of you. So I'm sure he'll get the opportunity in the future. So, and that's, I guess, I think where things are headed is where you see your future as a volleyball player, because you're going to have an opportunity to play both indoor and beach. And we didn't really talk about if you have a preference, like I'm sure you love to do both, but if there's one that kind of outweighs the other, and then, the goal is, I think, to have the best college career you can have, but obviously I think you, and your ability level allows you to, but I think you have ambitions beyond college. So where do you see things in the big picture? And ultimately, like, I know your expectations for yourself are very high. Where are your goals long term?
So right now I prefer indoor, but I do love beach because it's an all-around game. You get to do everything in the game. I think long term would like to play after college. That's kind of the goal, is to play pro, whether it's indoor or beach. Right now, I think in the future I'm going to have probably more of an opportunity to play beach pro because it's an all-around game. And like, even talking to my coach, he was like, you would be amazing at beach, like after college, because it's a lifestyle sport. It's a lifestyle game because you're not getting hurt, like you're on the sand.
Right.
But at the same time, like, you can do it for as long as you want to, and you just have to have one partner. You don't have to necessarily make a team. You just have to find a partner. I have experience in beach, but not as much as I'd like to because I haven't been able to find partners that are my age.
Yeah.
It's always been older. So like, I'm playing U18 as like a 14-year-old, and it's just like not where I should be. I tried to find a partner. It's just very hard to find them out here because we don't have like beaches right next to us. But I think long term the goal would to play beach and go to the Olympics. That's like the ultimate dream, is to be an Olympian. But I think if I really work at it, I can get there. But it's just obviously going to take time, and I have those 4 years to really work on it. We have a great beach coach too that I get to play with in the off season of indoor, but spring for beach. So I think that could definitely be a possibility, but it's only going to work if I figure it out.
That's exciting, though. Yeah. I'm kind of ignorant to the professional volleyball ranks. Does anyone play indoor and beach professionally at the same time?
Professionally, I don't think so. A lot of the beach players stick to the beach, and a lot of indoor stick to indoor. I know a lot of college players that do it. We have a few girls on our team that are doing it, so I kind of get to do it with them and
That's
see
cool.
how they do their schedules because they're like juniors, so they've done it before. Not that I know of right now, but like the greatest beach players played. So one of the greatest beach players of all time, Misty May. She played at Long Beach. She played indoor at Long Beach, and she was a pro on the beach in the Olympics, and she stuck with beach after that. So I think people usually kind of split into their one because it's a very different game.
Right.
In terms of like the mindset and then like just the IQ of each game. It's very different in how you play and your smart shots. So I think most people just stick with one or the other.
Well, and I think because you are a versatile player, it, like your coach was saying, it opens you up to that more than others. I just, you see more beach volleyball, professional beach volleyball on TV and whatever. You see it more often than you see the indoor. So I figured that's probably more likely where the opportunities are, especially for a player like yourself. I just didn't know if it was something that people could do. But like you said, it's a lifestyle
It
sport.
just really depends on how your life plans out in terms of like from one half of your life being beach and then the other half being indoor. It's like you can either dedicate yourself to one or you can dedicate yourself to both. I just don't know if people are willing to do both.
We've mentioned it a couple times, both playing through injuries, and then you were talking about the beach. You see less injuries because you're playing on sand. Is dealing with injuries something that you personally have to do a lot, or like again, I'm kind of ignorant to the way it works for volleyball players. Obviously, I think for any sport, the rigors of the sport and the continuous training, and I think when you play at a high enough level, the sacrificing your body to not only compete, but to get yourself prepared to compete. Is that something that you've had to deal with? And, is there a way for volleyball specifically that you try and take care of yourself so that you can improve that longevity, at least for now when you're going to be playing both ways?
Yeah. I think with like dealing with injuries and preparing for injuries, there's a lot of discipline that has to happen. Like literally just the simple things like rolling and stretching and weight training and making yourself stronger so that you can prevent getting injuries. I personally haven't dealt with like huge injuries. I had one this last year that I'm still battling a little bit. I have a partially torn ligament in my ankle. So that happened right before my first USA. So I had a little nerves going into that because I was getting my ankle taped. I've had it taped every high school game of this season because I'm just, it's not that I'm scared. I just, like, I've been taking precautions. I've been doing PT. I stopped jumping a little bit at lifting. Like, I didn't jump. I just lifted and got stronger and made it stronger. I've started to slowly get back into it. And I think really, like, prepping yourself, like cryo, like going to cryo is a good thing. Normateching and, like, just doing the basic things. I think if you're really consistent and have a routine, I think that helps prevent injuries, definitely. Like building I try to focus myself on like building routines and staying consistent with it, especially in college.
Yeah.
Because I will have no off season. I think definitely staying in a routine, like, hey, waking up in the morning and stretching, or like rolling after you shower because your muscles are warm. But like just staying with that habit, I think can take you a long way, because if you're staying consistent with it, it's making you stronger.
It's good that you're already building it, honestly, because I think a lot of people, when they go to college,
They don't realize.
and they're not used to you. If you have routines like that, a lot of times when you're younger, you have people who are pushing you to do those routines or keeping you accountable to them. And so when you go to school and you're on your own, it really falls to you to keep yourself accountable, whether it be going to class or doing your homework or making sure that you're eating and taking care of your body. So it's good to hear that you've already been building these good habits, because that's something that is a necessity if you're going to play at a super high level. I think any professional athlete will tell you there is a responsibility to take care of yourself, and taking care of yourself is kind of a full-time job. And if your job is going to be being an athlete professionally, you have to approach it as such. So it's good to hear. I mean, obviously your ankle really wasn't affecting you too much. You had a great season, league MVP again. So that's good. I mean, when I watch volleyball, I see people diving all over the floor, and it just looks, there's no give on the hardwood. It's got to be it's got to be difficult on your body, especially. I know for other club sports, you're playing year round. Like, it's a constant grind to just keep yourself healthy, so that you can perform at the top of your game.
Yeah, and I think physically is a lot of it, but honestly, I think majority of it is your mindset and your mindfulness. I struggle a lot with anxiety, and I get very anxious before games, even if it's like it could be the lowest game ever. Like, it doesn't matter at all, and I'll still like get all like kind of jittery a little bit, and I'm like, I get nervous because I'm like, okay, I need to perform, I need to be on my game. I think a lot of mindfulness. So like I've tried to I read a book before night every day, or like 10 pages. I've prioritized that. I just started doing that, and it's definitely helped because I'm more calm in the morning. I try to kind of calm myself down, and so physicality is a big part of it, because you're throwing your body on the floor all the time and you're sacrificing your body, but also you really need to prioritize mental health. I'm very big on that, because you can get very down on yourself. So I think really prioritizing staying calm and staying composed, because obviously you don't want people to see the inside. Like, nobody really knows that unless you're my teammate and like with me all the time. But nobody really sees that kind of side of it. So I think that's bigger than just the physical part, is like working on yourself and working on your confidence and your ability in yourself.
It's something personally as an athlete, and something that I work with kids all the time, where they're putting up a strong facade, or just like making it seem as if they don't have nerves, or trying to present as if they're not afraid. And I think sometimes embracing that and understanding, like, I have nerves because I want to perform well, because this means, I always tell people, if you have anxiety or if you're nervous about something, it's usually because it means a lot to you. And so I'm wondering, for you, somebody who consistently performs at a really high level and who has very high expectations, when you're in lower moments, when it might be you haven't performed as well as you want to, or you're anxious before a game, or maybe you've got something big coming up where it's important for you to perform, but there are other things on the line, whether it be your future or trying to get recruited or whatever. When you're in those low moments, how are you building yourself up, and where are you finding strength?
So I struggled a lot when I was younger. I get very, very frustrated with myself. You can still see it sometimes during a game. Like, I'll make a mistake and be like, okay, like, why did you do that? What went wrong? And I still continue to think about it, like the next plays. I think just moving on and trashing it, saying like, okay, it was one bad play. Like, I can't be bad on the next one if I'm not still thinking about it. And so I think also having a support system that is like coming up to you and saying like, hey, you got the next ball. Like, I know you have it. Like, give me a good pass. Like, I got you. And so I had a lot of that support, especially during high school, because I played with my best friends. Like, I would kind of, if I was getting down on myself, and I'd be like, okay, like, what are you doing? I'd go in the huddle and like not say anything, not being like the leader that I should be, and saying, hey, like taking accountability. I would kind of just dip my head down a little bit, and everyone would look at me and like kind of take that energy off of me and put it on themselves. So it was like, I rated a lot of like down energy to the point where it was like affecting other people. And so I think really it's just like mental talk. So like I would sit on the bench and our coach would be talking to us and I'd like close my eyes during a game or like before serve, I'd close my eyes and be like, okay, like I'm good, like I got the next one, like you're not having a bad game, it was just one bad play, like you're gonna get over it, and even if it is a bad game, make tomorrow a better practice. Right. And so like our libero, Lexi, like literally during a game, we would be passing together, I'd make a mistake, we'd literally go up to each other and we'd hold hands and squeeze for like 2 seconds right before the play. And then kind of just release the pressure. It was like, okay, we're good. Like, I got you. And it was like kind of letting each other know, like, okay, I got you. Like, you're not by yourself. If you're making a mistake, it's a whole team. Like, we all have you.
Yeah.
We have your back. So I think dealing with that. And then just, I love, like, before games when I get anxious, like, calming music definitely helps. I have, like, a little playlist that's just music, no words. But, like, kind of just calming my brain and, like, visualizing definitely helps, too, before a game. Being like, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this. But not putting a lot of pressure, because I'm very much known to put a lot of pressure on myself. Sure. A lot of people point that out and they're like, okay, you need to release some of that because there's other people that can help you take that pressure off. So I think really just try not to doubt yourself and keeping your confidence up, and that comes with reps and being mindfulness and like just helping yourself.
Yeah, I know with a lot of really top-level elite players, your expectation, well, it's not only your expectation, but everybody else's expectation is that you dominate all the time. And when it's not happening, you know, it's difficult sometimes to process that. And there is a realization at some point like, hey, the rest of your team is here to help you. Like, you don't have to carry it all by yourself, because sometimes you end up having to. You know, teams having a tough day, and it's like your ability can carry them over the top. But I know for a lot of players, it takes some time to realize, like, oh, I don't have to do it all, and I can. And once you start relying on other people, it's like, oh, everything will work out. But you mentioned self-talk, and I know for a lot of players, and myself included, negative self-talk is a really difficult thing to deal with. It's something that even today, I'm a health and wellness coach. I help kids all the time. My own personal, I hear myself sometimes where my own personal like self-talk is not good. And I think understanding in moments, like especially when you make mistakes, I very much so advocate for the fact that mistakes are part of the process and they're a necessity for you to grow as a person and as a player. And you can learn a lot from your mistakes, whether in life or in sport, and vice versa. Like, you can make a mistake in your sport and it actually will translate later in your life, you know, for something that has nothing to do with sports. But learning from those things and being able to process it in the moment and be like, yeah, that was bad. I was a mistake. Like, I'm not happy with that. But if you dwell on it, it's only going to lead to more mistakes. And I'm sure that's happened where you're like, you make a poor play on the next ball and it's like, I'm just still thinking about the last one that I should have had. I know I coach goalkeepers, and as a goalkeeper, like, you get scored on, and I always tell people, don't let the next goal be because of the last one. It's inevitable that it's going to kind of carry over unless you can process it and let it go. So I like the squeezing of the hands, because it's like the physical manifestation of letting something go. It's very cool. So and relying on your teammates, I think, is a big thing that a lot of top players really struggle with, because they feel like they have to do it themselves. If I don't perform, we're not going to win, and so it's all on me. It's like, yes, to an extent, but if you can work together with the people around you and trust them that they got your back, it's nice to see that your team can recognize when you're struggling and can just pick you up.
Yeah, negative self-talk is definitely something I struggle with. I'll be in practice and like, why did you do that? Or like, I'll like joke and be like, what are you doing? Like that. And I think definitely people around you, like especially my best friend Laurel in club, she was like the only person, her and my coach were like the only people who could get me out of my head when I was there. She'd come up to me and be like, hey, like I know who you are, I know what you can do. Right. You just gotta pull yourself out of the hole and be like, okay, you got it. Like, and then same thing with my coach, like I do my handshake and I'm like, okay, I'm good. Like I just crack a joke. Like cracking a joke definitely helps, because then it gets your mind off of it. Like crack a joke, be like, hey, like you got the next one, or like even making a joke about the mistake that you made, and then you kind of just let it go. They're like, oh, that was terrible, and then you're like, okay, whatever. Yeah, you can kind of laugh it off a little bit. Yeah. So I think that definitely helps in just putting a smile on someone's face and be like, I got you. So.
Well, is that something for you? Because you said you maybe not at first, but people have pushed you and you've pushed yourself to take on more of a leadership role wherever you are, even if you are a younger player. is that something that you find for yourself is just picking up other players, and has it progressed where you're picking up other people and you're like, oh, I could do that for myself too?
Yeah. When I was younger, I definitely got on myself, not only on myself, but on other people. I had a very bad attitude when I played. And so I've definitely very much worked very hard on that over the last few years of being like, okay, you need to be there for your teammates, because when you can't be there for yourself, you have to be there for someone else. So definitely stepping into the leadership role. My coach has really taught me that, like, hey, like, they're going to need you, because for some reason they look to you. Whenever something bad goes happen, they look to you and see how you react. And it's like your reaction gives off energy to everybody. So you have to have something positive coming out, because they're like, okay, it's okay. Like, Maddie thinks it's okay, so it's okay. That was kind of like my coach noticed that, and he was like, okay, they look to you when something bad goes wrong. So it was like, you need to reinforce that, like, we're going to be okay. And definitely picking other people up. I love doing that, because it's like, hey, like, it's the same thing they say to me. It's like, I know who you are, I know what you can do. So it's like, that was one bad play. Like, I got you on the next one. And sometimes it's my fault and they make a mistake, and it's like, hey, that was me. Like, I got you. Talking about that, and like just leadership, being a setter, like, that's just kind of automatically, because it's like, if the set wasn't good, you have to own up to it. So you have to tell them anyways. But just like if someone's having a bad practice or something happened at home, just getting their mind off of it, I think is definitely a leadership role. Like, leadership doesn't go just with like the skill part of it. That's not like taking accountability. It's not just that. It's also the relationship that you have with the person.
Right.
So like, definitely reassuring them.
It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know body language is something that I talk to a lot of players about. It communicates way more than you think it would, and it says more than words ever can. So if you have players looking to you, I've talked about it with other people on this podcast, where if your body language is poor, especially after somebody else does something, you can say a lot without saying anything, but you can say a lot positively as well. So I would just implore, leaders and people who are the top players on their team, just be aware of what you're doing in moments, because a lot of times it happens kind of reactionary. Like, you don't even realize you're doing it until somebody kind of points it out to you. Yeah. So what I would say is, take stock of yourself when bad things are happening, because people will look to you. And if you're like, yeah, it's fine, then everybody else is going to kind of be like, oh, okay, it's not a big deal. And leadership is an interesting thing, because it's something you learn. I think it's something that you get from other people too, whether it be coaches or older players, where you start to pick up things where you're like, oh, that's a really smart move. I'm going to use that. Yeah. And it's tough to be in that role. It's tough when everybody looks to you when there's a problem. It would be nice if people looked to you when there wasn't an issue. But usually as the leader, it's when things are going wrong, what are you doing? And so picking up people and making sure that you are presenting yourself in the best way you can, and letting your team know, like, hey, when things aren't working, like, we still got each other and everything's okay. So it's good. It's nice to see. I want other athletes to see that there's a progression. It's not like everybody's a leader from the jump. Like, you might have a bad attitude early on, and especially you're a kid, like, you're going to get frustrated. Not everybody has, their personality or their game fully formed when they start playing, or when they start playing at a really high level. And I think there is frustration sometimes early on when you're playing maybe with other people who aren't at the same level as you, and your expectations for yourself versus their expectations for themselves might not be the same. And so there might be frustrations that build, in a team environment, but that's an evolution that has to happen as you get older. And so I would say is, look to other people, look to your coaches, look to people that you respect and how they carry themselves, and understand that it's a process. Nothing's ever going to be perfect, but you can get better over time. Yeah. As a player and as a leader. And sometimes that comes, you learn leadership from being a follower. Yeah. You learn leadership from just being a good teammate and listening to the other leaders on your team, because they are preparing you to take over when they're gone. Yeah. So, well, I mean, is there one, so like, you've obviously, between soccer and volleyball, you've done a lot of really great things as an athlete, and I have no doubt there are a lot of really great things on the horizon that are still to come. Is there one moment in your career, soccer, volleyball, really anything as an athlete, that stands out as like, this is going to be something I remember forever, or this is like the best moment for me, and it doesn't have to be a huge thing, but just something for you that stands out as like, this is what's super memorable?
There's definitely a few. I would say this past year for club, I got to play one last year with all my best friends. They were all 1 year older, so they're all freshmen in college right now.
Yeah.
We won a national championship in Ohio, which was like just the best feeling ever because it was all our last year. Like I knew I was going early by that point. So it was like, okay, like we want to do this not only for us, but we want to do it for our coach. We want to do it for our club. We want to show like our club and that family that like, hey, like we can do this. And like you guys growing up, you can do it too.
Set the tone
I think
for everybody
that was
else.
a very special moment for all of us. Like that was very emotional. Like we all knew we could do it. It was going to be a matter of like, hey, like, are we going to stick together and do it together? I think that was a big thing. And then I did end up getting MVP for the game, and then my coach turned to me after. And I don't remember if it was exactly the day that it happened or a few weeks later when he texted me or called me. But he was like, hey, what's going to take you so far is, yes, your volleyball skill is going to take you, but it's your personality and your heart. And that like really stuck with me because he was the one who pointed out my bad attitude when I was younger. And so growing into that, he was like, your heart's going to take you far because you care about people and you care about yourself. And you have just like the discipline and like the ultimate grit to just, and the motivation to get where you want to be. And I know you're going to get there because you have the heart to do it. And he told me I had a big heart. And that was like a very special moment for me because when I talk to people a lot, it's like I'm always talked about with my skill. It's never who I am as a person. It's always like, oh my gosh, like she's committed to a D1 school. Like she must be so good. But like nobody really ever knows me as a person because I don't open up to people. I'm very shy until I get to meet people. Like I don't talk much until I get to meet you and then I'll talk your head off.
Yeah.
But like him telling me that I had a big heart and that was going to take me further than just my volleyball skill was very special to me because it was like, I know like he's seen my journey and how I've grown as a person and how I've become as a person. My mom says the same thing to me all the time. Like, he's like, you're a very humble person. You never talk about your own skill. You don't like to, unless people say stuff, like you just kind of stand there and smile and say like, thank you.
Yeah.
But it was just like how much love you have, not only for the game, but the people that you play with. That's what's going to take you far. So that was
wonderful.
very, very special to me. Did cry a little bit when he told me that, but yeah.
It is. I can speak for myself as a coach. It is a really wonderful thing to be able to tell kids how much you appreciate them and how much you see them as more than just a player, and that it's wonderful to be recognized for who you are as a person and not just as a player, because you're right, people see you and see what you can do and they're like, wow, she's such an amazing volleyball player, but you're a person too. There's so much more to you than just being good at this one thing. And I think that's something that I think a lot of really elite athletes can
Appreciate it.
yeah, and agree with and have experienced, because for all of them, they're really good at this thing, this one great thing. And I try and talk to people about, futures after sports or being a person outside of your sport and your identity being more than just being an athlete. You're more than just a volleyball player. You're a person. And being great at volleyball is just one aspect of who you are, and it's just one thing that makes up who you are. So it's wonderful that obviously winning is great, but knowing that someone recognizing that you have a lot more to offer than just being a wonderful volleyball player is the thing that sticks out the most. And for me as a coach, it's those relationships that you build with players. Like down the road, you'll remember the championship, you'll remember the practices, but you'll remember that interaction with your coach more than anything. And I think that is what's really important, because somewhere down the road, I feel like you are going to be presented with a situation, whether it be as a player with somebody looking up to you, or be as a coach. I'm sure you'll probably coach at some point in the future, where you'll be able to do something similar for another player, and you'll know how much it means. Yeah, and how important it is to be seen as more than just this thing that you're great at. So that's a really wonderful. That's a beautiful story. I'm glad that he was able to get through to you, because I think that gets lost with a lot of people when they look at elite athletes. Is it's like, yeah, I'm great at this thing, but I'm so much more than that. And especially professionals too. We see them on TV, we see them do these things, and it's like they're people though. They have lives, they have personalities, they have experiences that go on outside of your sport. So I want kids to understand that yes, you love this thing that you do. Yes, you're great at it. Yes, you're hopefully going to have a professional career doing it moving forward. But it's just one aspect of who you are as a person.
A lot of people don't see like the human aspects because it's a lot behind the doors. It's just like you're watching a volleyball game and all you see is their skill. You don't see how they're going to the huddle and saying like, oh, I got the next one. You're not seeing how they're talking to people after the game like, that was an amazing game for you. Like, it's just very, very special when someone says that to you because they've recognized it, like you said. And then like I always say, like, the greatest compliment that I love to receive is like, I'm so proud of you as like a person. You can say I'm so proud of you as a volleyball player. That means the world too. But it's like saying I'm so proud of you and like what you've accomplished as a person. It hits a little more close to home because it's like, okay, not only have I worked to be the greatest athlete, but I've also worked to be the greatest person that I can be. And so just like knowing that people recognize that and notice that is definitely special.
It's important to be seen, and it's important to be seen as more than just this one thing. And I think for a lot of people, they do get wrapped up in being seen as this one thing. But knowing, you know, you're going to have so much of your life that's going to exist outside of your sport, and recognizing that for yourself and then having other people recognize it as well. It's a really nice thing to be reinforced. And I want people to understand, like, yes, it is important to work hard and put in all the time and effort, but also understand that it's important to build your life outside of your sport too. You are a person. You're not just this one thing. You have to be a complete person. And I think the people who are the best at things and who can go the farthest are complete people. And, you know, some people might let that competitive drive take over, but it sounds to me like the relationship building, especially when you play a team sport, for some people it's like their competitiveness is what takes them over the edge. It's like they are, you know, the Kobe Bryants of the world, the Mamba mentality of I'm just going to go out and do what I have to do and step over everybody in the way. And then there's other people who want to carry people with them and bring them up, bring them along and build up the team. And I think that speaks as a true leader for you. So I'm really happy to hear that. That's good on you for your coach. That was a really nice thing to do for you.
I'll say shout out Jamie Kerr.
Yeah, there you go. All right, well, I've really enjoyed our conversation. I like to end every episode with asking my guests to provide a piece of advice, something they recommend for anybody who's maybe in their shoes or might be experiencing something similar. You touched on a lot of different stuff today that I think a lot of people resonate, even outside of volleyball players. But maybe somebody who wants to achieve what you've done, play Division I, might have aspirations to play as a professional. What's something that you would give them?
I think the main thing is, like, don't do it for, like, the validation and recognition. Like, yeah, that's amazing. You love when people see you outside of your sport, like, oh my gosh, like, you're the girl who blah, blah, blah. And it's like, that's great, but I would say, like, me personally, I don't do it for the validation and the recognition. I do it to inspire, and I do it because it's what makes my heart happy and it's what I love. And then I just love doing it because, yes, it's a sacrifice, but because I love it so much, it doesn't feel like it's a sacrifice. Like, it just feels like I love to do this. It's not like, oh my gosh, I have to sacrifice 4 hours of my day to go practice. It's like, no, I want to go do that.
You get to go practice.
So make sure that, like, if you're in your sport and you want to get far in your sport, make sure you're doing it because you love it, not just because you want to show people and prove to people that you can do it, because you have nothing to prove. You don't even have to prove yourself. You just have to do what you love. So,
love it, dude.
Yeah.
Great job today. Thank you. Good job, Maddie. Excellent.
Dubs.
Duh.
Huge thank you to our guest today, Madi Maxwell, our producer, Malin Blade, and all the big dogs listening. Tune into our next episode for more Athletes Unleashed. Later, homies.